Hey, welcome to the Higher Ed AV podcast. My name is not Joe Way, it is Britt Yenser, and boy, do we have a good one for you today. This is part one of a 4-part series sponsored by Korbyt. So we have some friends from Korbyt as well as a friend from Higher Ed. I'm going to let them introduce themselves, and then we're going to have a nice conversation. So Max, we'll start with you. Can you introduce yourself and let the listeners know a little bit about you?
Yeah, we'll do. Hi, everyone. I'm Max Guerro, Director of Product at Korbyt. I lead the strategy for our digital signage software and hardware solutions, helping campuses, enterprises leverage smart communication tools to improve engagement, efficiency, experience. And I also graduated from University of Oklahoma. So for anyone out there.
Excellent. All right. Welcome, Max and Bill.
Yeah, hi, everybody. Bill Fonz. I'm the president of AI initiatives for CTI. And CTI is a large systems integrator, one of the largest in the world. And we do a lot of business with Korbyt. And I've got a history myself with Korbyt. Predates CTI. And I've done a couple of speaking engagements with them as well. So it's super fun to be invited back. So looking forward to this.
Awesome. Thank you. Welcome, Bill. And last but not least, I have my higher ed friend and yours, Lex Evans.
Hello, I'm Lex Evans. I am the digital signage manager at University of Southern California. That's it. Yeah.
Welcome, Lex. Always good to see you. All right, So we're going to dive right in here. The first question that I had for you all was, how can QR code surveys help us get better, faster feedback from students? Don't all go at once.
Yeah, we can.
I can maybe start it. Yeah, and you guys feel free to add in. But I think meeting students, people right where they are, right, and letting them use devices they're comfortable with, it is kind of key there. So at least personally, I found for myself, being able to engage more from that capacity is just, it's way less barrier to entry to go that route, I feel like. Versus clicking a link, right, or responding to email, right? I think we all got kind of comfortable with it during the pandemic, right? Menus, etc., right? Going to your favorite restaurant. So, yeah.
Yeah, I guess I can follow that up and spot on the same point. Real-time feedback, like instantly. If something's confusing or annoying or just not working, you can fix it on the fly, get to it much faster. And it empowers because the students can recognize that their voice leads to change like quickly. They scan something and you get an instant interaction. I think that's pretty important. And it just overall just increases responsiveness from support teams too, that are supporting what's happening, depending on what you're using the QR code for. Real fast driver to solve a problem if that's indeed something you're doing.
Yeah, and that actually spurred a thought, right? Because there's like some reinforcement to that, right? At the end, right? If they know this engagement is something tangible and immediate, right? There's a quick response after they've completed something. Saying, hey, Lex, thanks for submitting. We're going to review that immediately, and before you know it, it's going to show up on the screen on campus, right wherever. So,
exactly.
At USC, we a lot of the content I'm putting on digital signage is advertising for clubs or community events and different things like that. So we love incorporating QR codes into our signage so that students walking by really quick between classes can get that information really quickly. And we've also seen the response rate go up significantly because, again, just like you guys both said, it's a lot quicker, a lot easier, a lot faster. So we are meeting them where they are. And of course, having the more stats we have, the better. And so having that stats from the QR codes and being able to cycle all the content through our digital signage has been a great way to show how much it improves the growth of these community, of the clubs, of the community in general, and just how much people are using these resources. So going forward, we can always incorporate more digital signage in more spaces.
Can you guys think of what life would be like if we didn't have QR codes just in general? Like how many times you use them and just how ease of use it is for whatever it is you're doing? I can't imagine.
Yeah. Too much typing.
And I like that you guys are saying it has both an academic and a social purpose. I think it's really important in higher ed that we get the most out of what we're investing in. So the more applications you can use this for, the better that you are. I see that we have a new friend joining us as well. So I'm gonna bring Eric to the stage. Welcome, Eric.
Hey everyone.
Hey, Eric.
Why don't you go ahead, take a breath here to introduce yourself to our listeners, and then you're going to jump in and tell us about QR code surveys.
Okay, sure. So Eric DeGiorgi, thanks and apologies for hopping in a little late here. The founder and CEO of NetSpeak, and NetSpeak is a new company in the Pro AV and UC space, and we focus on providing a Gen AI ops platform for assisting with deploying and operating and troubleshooting and managing mixed vendor estates and ecosystems of Pro AV and UC technologies. So it's kind of like a mouthful there, but that's where we're at.
That's awesome. Well, welcome. Thank you for being here. And we were just talking about how QR code surveys can help us get better and faster feedback from students. Do you have any insight into that?
Definitely jumping right in on that.
Welcome to the Thunderdome.
QR codes. So in what context? In physical spaces, or
so we've talked a little bit about like how Lex is in charge of digital signage, so putting things up on signage, or maybe how faculty can display things in an academic space.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, the more you can engage with your audience, the better, right? So having different engagement modalities, whether it's a survey or other objectives, it makes a tremendous amount of sense. I don't necessarily have any personal experience doing that, so I don't know how much insight I can shed, but I mean, it's a wonderful engagement modality. And certainly on the infrastructure side, it's something that we use to associate people with locations and spaces, as they move around. Think about like meeting rooms and scheduling and booking and all that kind of stuff. So it definitely has a lot of use cases, inside surveying and outside.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And the other thing I want to make sure that we talked about was the idea of smart playlists. This is actually something that is new to me personally, so I'm interested to hear what you guys have to say. What is the potential for smart playlists to help faculty share the right information at the right time?
Well, I can jump in. Oh,
go ahead, Lex.
I'll jump in first this time. So for me, I love a good, smart, clever playlist with Korbyt. It makes it 10 times easier in the sense that we can set it up, put in the time kind of at the beginning to set it up, and be a lot more hands-off when it comes to the playlists. And it also just makes it that much easier to upload content, to manage content in general. And especially if it's able to integrate with the calendars and changing for the different times of day for different events. That's been really helpful. Basically, it kind of leans more towards the automated AI type of thing. And I just love being able to work with a software that allows us to partner with each other to just make it easier for everyone all the way around. And I'm excited for how much it's going to grow. I feel like we're just at the beginning. We're like on the precipice of, what these clever playlists can are capable of. So I really like the idea of using it. And this is the clever playlist is always the first thing I pitch. Every time we bring on a new content manager, it's just the easiest to manage, and the content is the most dynamic, and it is the way to go. So I'm a big fan of clever and smart playlists.
Good, couple of good points in there. I'm a big fan too, and it's interesting because that's sort of the business that I had been in for the last 5 or 6 years. Is multiple restaurant chains and retail chains, a lot of studies, and a lot of purpose behind curation in general. Just like even curated music lists, like certain music will inspire certain feelings, and you want somebody to feel a certain way if you want them to leave the restaurant versus hang around in a store for longer. Like lots of study around how that like is intentional and whatever the desired outcome that you need. And I think in a campus setting, it's contextual messaging. Like if a certain building is hosting a career fair, students walking into that building can see content relevant to what's going on. In another way, if that content, and AI can assist with this, if that content is competing with something else going on, there's a coffee shop around the corner and a long line, do you want that to happen? Or do you want to take advantage of that line and do some messaging, or maybe message an ad for the coffee? There's all kinds of things you can do sort of on the spot, on the fly, with conditional predetermined outcomes. When you see a line and when you see a heat map of people standing for more than 10 minutes, play this ad, and it will just sort of do it on its own. I might be getting a little too far ahead of whatever the capabilities are with the existing system, but that's the stuff I get fired up about when I think of AI meets digital signage and heat mapping. Like, there's so much fun stuff you can do there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think, the questions on the panel today, everything kind of merges together here. I mean, maybe even thinking QR code analytics to reinforce that heat mapping, Bill, right? Like, who's engaging with screens at different places in the campus based off that QR code engagement, right? And so you could tailor messaging based off that. I love, Lex, how you're kind of propping Korbyt up there. That was awesome. Kind of stole a lot of points I was going to say, but it was, I mean, you both are spot on. It's automating context-aware messaging. It's personalization based off location and other, metadata factors, location factors, kind of, you name it, environmental factors. But really the value, I think, for a campus or a smart campus is you are, allowing these each, college units, almost acting as kind of smaller business units, to have personalized messaging really easily. And I think, like Lex, you were saying, you need a system that allows you to manage that simply, right? You can't have content admin experts all over the place knowing how to use it. You need to have a system that can automate this for you. So, I think one part that resonated with me as well, that I've seen time and time again with some of our customers, is you try to onboard a new college, right? College of Law, decide to sign up for Signage, right? What's the easiest way to get them engaged and liking the tool is to help them create personalized content for their students, right? Get that engagement from their students, and they see the value prop immediately.
Mm-hmm.
Good point.
So it sounds like when we're talking about smart playlists, this is someone like Lex, for example, who's in charge of digital signage, is both creating content and making sure it's in the right place at the right time. So again, I'm not really a person who does digital signage on my campus, so I'm learning. So it sounds like these smart playlists kind of help you to consolidate that content and put it in the right order. Is that right?
Yeah, it's just a lot less babysitting. And then when I am, kind of like what Max mentioned, when I'm pitching it and when I'm bringing in new managers and showing them the potential with Korbyt, it's just a lot easier to sell when we have that clever playlist, because nobody wants to spend time coming up every morning and making sure that the signage isn't expired and it's showing the relevant information. We want that to automatically happen. And that happens through the clever playlists.
That's awesome. That's very cool. All right. And speaking of not wanting to spend too much time on stuff, that kind of leads me to the third question I had for you guys. And that was how you think that things like Gen AI and machine learning can make things easier for tech managers when they're dealing with content in different spaces.
I can kick that one off if you'd like. There's so much fun you can do. I know everything that sounds fun to me right now, but AI is just so cool whenever we're talking about it. So like, I think of machine learning and how it can surface patterns and how students engage with specs or tech itself, messaging. Instead of like usage reports, we're talking predictive insight and all of the things you can do to get in front of that. Again, and you sort of pre-curate what the message is. And if this condition happens, you push, the message, but engagement rates have to go way up when you hit somebody at the right time, the right place, and in the right way. I'm trying to remember the phrase my daughter used when you're talking about something, but you're not on the phone, and all of a sudden something was listening and an ad is pushed to you. Wow, that's really cool. If you're like in the, you've got a hankering for a hamburger and you were just talking about hamburgers, it's pretty like coincidental and nice that it happens. But if you don't want a hamburger and you get the ad pushed, it's pretty creepy. And so like we want to make sure that, the content hits at the right time and the content is relevant and it's what I really need. And as I see, AI kind of take, well, like chapter 2 of flight here, we're getting much better at hitting people right where they need to be, which is why it's super exciting when I see people like Eric doing clever things with AI and intentional with, again, preconditioned. You marry that up with another, like a database of exact content that you want to draw from. So it's not just guessing like the language model AI. It's intentionally sending something you would like to happen, since sort of not drifting off the rails into a place you don't want it to go. But I could just keep on going there. But there's so much fun about it in this space, and the personalization is just amazing these days. It's awesome.
So actually my background is actually in signage, even though it's not exactly what I'm doing now, but I spent about 20 years in the industry. And, I'm remembering back to when really kind of curated and directed signage really kind of landed and kind of became the norm, right? Because it all started in broadcast, right? It's like, I'm going to put a message up and hope it resonates with some percentage of people, right? And the next, when you started to target, it's, let me have a repository of different messages that, depending on the audience and depending on the context, I can present and hopefully resonate with more people. But now we're really embarking on a whole new era where you don't need to necessarily kind of say preload content, for this particular age or gender or demographic or context or something. The content itself can generate based on the context, based on the audience, based on the viewer. And I have to imagine that in the very near future, that's really going to take hold. And there will be some degree of on the fly generated content based on the immediate moment. And it's going to create something unique and new for that viewer on the fly. That's really exciting.
I will say, though, in higher ed and government, security is always going to be an issue. So right now, where I see AI at right now, before it, full-fledged flies, right now, I think it's a great partner to work with. I love the idea of it suggesting content. So maybe, it'll suggest this type of content or say, maybe this content would be better during these times because the heat map shows like a big concentration of people at that point. So I think for me, I will always have to watch security wise. I can't let AI run with our digital signage on campus. But I like the idea of partnering with it, and I like the idea of it just making everything a lot faster and then bringing fresh new ideas I wouldn't have thought of. And that's kind of where I'm landing with the AI on campus, making
Human in the
content.
loop is pretty important, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
in fact, could you imagine a world within this new AI realm where there isn't a human in the loop? It's almost always essential, right?
Yeah, and I feel like AI these days are so close. You'll see the AI visualizations, and then it looks really cool, and then you look closely, and they're like 6 fingers. And you just kind of have to watch those details. It's really getting better, but it's always good to have that human eye just to make sure everything is kosher and appropriate.
100%.
Yeah, there's going to be a day when all that goes away. You're not going to be able to tell, right? Is this a real person? Is this AI generated? Some of these videos you see out there are mind blowing. Even like this past month, like these new models coming out, it's pretty crazy. But I think you're right, Lex, especially in in a campus, right, where you're probably so worried about getting the right message out that's not. Right. Well, that's to standards, I guess, another way to say it, right? And isn't going out of bounds in any way, right? So, think of it more as a personalized kind of powerful assistant for you instead of someone doing that work on your behalf. So, it's kind of an exciting time for Korbyt, a software company. We're looking and we're building different ways to incorporate AI into our main workflows. So one of those is in content creation. we've started to showcase this to customers. Should be coming out soon, and it's helping bridge that gap, that time gap, to getting content completed. So starting from blank canvas to content, to 80% of that content done in a matter of seconds, right? You spend 2 to 4 minutes finalizing that. Whereas before, you're spending 10, 15 minutes building that 80%, finding the right, zones to put, the right base image, the colors, right? So using AI to shortcut a lot of that is what we're particularly focused on right now. But then also the other half, the receiving half, the devices, right? So a lot of the smart content, smart playlists we talked about, leveraging AI there to automate a lot of that for us, right? So you're bridging devices and content together with machine learning and AI. So those are some of the few things we're looking towards soon. I think in the digital signage industry altogether, you're going to see much more than just Korbyt, right? Everyone's going to start coming to market with these, and before you know it, like I said, just like no more six fingers, there's going to be it's going to be rare for software, for signage software, to not have AI incorporated into it. So it's going to be the new norm for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be ubiquitous. And Lex, you're not alone at all in your concerns around safety and security. We're deploying product that not only is meant to interface with people, but can actually command and control all of the technologies in the network. So we have a very very sharp focus on security and compliance and making sure that things stay on the rail. So while we're not necessarily generating and putting images on a screen, there's a lot of underlying capability in the technology. And AI is so new. Gen AI is so new, but as it matures into enterprise class products, I think you're going to see a strong emphasis around security, compliance, ensuring that it kind of stays on the rails. And even things at this stage we're doing, just in a simple chat, right? If I'm in a console and I'm doing some network management alongside our AI, every single conversation goes through a gateway and is tracked. There's pattern recognition in the conversation. There's word recognition in the conversation. There's things that we've done to our AI to make sure that it stays on those rails. But even we're ensuring that people aren't using it for nefarious reasons, right? So like all of that is tracked and monitored. There's a lot of tools and a lot of capabilities that just as quickly as AI is growing, the kind of surrounding ecosystem to make it enterprise class and make it, generally available and capable without, to mitigate those fears and threats, I think is right there behind it.
I really like the idea of like having a specialized AI for you. So maybe like when we create a new account with a new whomever, so with USC, and then we upload all our rules and regulations. And because us as a university, we may have different rules, stricter rules than, a mom and pop who want to explore AI there. But being able to do that and then share the brand, share the voice so that the generated content can be that much more specialized, that would be a time saver. Because creating content is one thing, creating content that's of the brand would take it to next level.
And that definitely you're spot on there, right? It's creating brand aligned content, even voice aligned. So things we're looking at are, you upload your organization, your college's mission, vision, goals, philanthropy stance. You kind of give it all these metrics to use as its North Star for everything it creates, right? So it has the same voice, same branding, imagery, logos, etc. And I'll even go as far to say, this may seem even, a bit outrageous, but it'll get there one day, is AI to moderate as well. So you train the AI tool, say, this is my voice, these are my logos, my colors, and you actually let AI moderate that for you. So now it's speeding up your moderation process where you don't have to go through everything manually one by one. That's probably going to be uncomfortable for a few years, but there will be a world, right, where you're kind of pulling the strings, so to speak, right, on all these different AI tools to create a seamless and efficient workflow for your day-to-day use.
I was talking to somebody recently about this very topic of create an AI that's flexible and can sort of shift based on the set of rules that you have in one organization versus the next. And we started talking about not just that foundational AI, but the AI output being tailored to each individual user. If they're reading a document and they're an engineer, let's say, and they have a certain background, you have an AI output persona. Is the information what's important that you want to instill to that person, or is it your language more important? I think it's usually the information you want them to absorb. If you can have the output, make this readable so that a 5-year-old can understand the concept we're trying to portray, you can actually do the opposite as well. And you can tailor the content to the individual that you're talking to. And then you explore this world of possibilities of what you could do. If you could generate an individual persona in the moment and get that right most of the time, imagine what would happen to retention rates at that point, when even the content is not just custom designed for the campus, it's custom designed for the person who happens to be standing in front of the speaker or the television. I mean, it just, you just keep on going down this path, and it just gets better and better.
And Bill, what you're starting to talk about there are the range of experiences that we can have on a campus, right? Because we were talking a lot about what does the technology manager experience entail here when we're talking about AI and machine learning. And it's very natural for us to have that conversation amongst ourselves and for our listeners, because we're the technology managers. But we also need to be able to pitch these concepts to people in terms of what is the experience for them as the non-tech manager. So let's lean into that a little bit too. When we think about AI and machine learning, how do you see that shaping the campus experience for faculty and students?
Where do you begin?
I can think of the class schedule, like just something as simple as that, like automatically sync with wayfinding displays for the experience of the student trying to navigate their way through the campus, like the study space suggestions based on maybe past usage or learning preferences from where we've seen that student sort of sit down and have success in the past, or digital content that maybe adapts to major interest of that person. If they're into sports, you can kind of direct where you believe, hit them where they're at, with some interest that they have. And like for faculty, like in the classroom, I'm thinking of lecture recaps, kind of like we do on team and Zoom calls and things like that, like push notifications to students through Signage or whatever LMS tools are on hand, and tools that flag students of who may be falling behind. You're going to generate more content of a particular type to this student because they need it in that way. So it's bespoke content where another student who is struggling isn't struggling with quite the same thing. And now we're again curating the message they're getting based on whatever they need. The sky's kind of the limit.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're gonna see that just across the board in every kind of human context. Bill, you're absolutely right. It just envision a near-term future where there's an AI companion for every human being. And that AI companion knows the strengths and weaknesses and habits and passions and fears of every person because they're directly tied to that person, and can help them navigate spaces and interact with other AI and other people. And it really kind of creates this fluidity where just kind of not only just physical movement, but intellectual and thought movement becomes really augmented by this technology that is able to remove the mundane tasks of, say, note-taking or scheduling or doing things like that in the kind of physical sense, but then can also augment, I didn't get that question right, or I didn't understand that concept that the professor was talking about, and can augment and support that and really curate a personal experience that kind of transcends both the physical space, the kind of social, emotional, intellectual space, but really acts as a companion to each person. I mean, I have to imagine that that's where we're going to be in the near future.
Eric, but just think of the multimodal AI solutions that can detect, you didn't look like you were engaged on this last paragraph. Let's go through that again. You
Absolutely.
didn't sound like you were confident with the speech. Let's redo that last part. I mean, that is pretty powerful when the AI is so fine-tuned, it can detect disruptions that you might not even realize you have, but it can do that and help you with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
It makes me think of the possibilities when it comes to inclusivity and like ADA compliance, and like say somebody English is their second language, being able to ask specifically what a specific word means in their first language, or maybe changing the font size or the colors so it's a lot easier to see, different things like that maybe the faculty, when they're creating their presentations, they don't really have time to think about all of it, or maybe they missed something. Being able to have AI help either on the student end or on the faculty end to be able to suggest and accommodate all of that. That's what I would really love to see, because we want a good experience for everybody, and not everyone learns the same way. Eric and Bill both touched on that. It's just being able to maybe reteach it in a different way, or different things like that could just make the education that much more successful. And I know we've all been there where we're like, why didn't I soak this in the way everyone else is in class, and just being able to accommodate that.
Yeah, and I think what everyone's saying here, and this is perhaps the best way everyone listening can prepare, right? None of this can happen without having the right data available to action on, right? Using these AI tools. So no data, AI is, it's not useless, but it's less personalized, less impactful unless you have these data sources. So, you should be looking for systems that talk to each other, APIs, secure data sharing. And this is interesting for higher ed because these are students, right? These are not just employees, right? So, it's a bit different definitely in the higher ed space. But, again, to all these points, none of this is possible unless you have the right data that you let the AI tool use. So definitely something to consider.
For technology, when it comes to, I feel like it trickles down to higher ed and government. Like we're like one of the last adopters, just because we have to be so careful about, the students and all of, and
personal data.
Personal data, all the things there. And just student, like they just love to hack a college system. It's a problem all the time. So it's one of those things that like I do appreciate it, because Eric and Bill, you guys can lead the way with the AI, and then we see you guys test it, and then once it gets to us, it's a lot safer.
It's funny because
you're saying we're the guinea pigs here.
Yes, and exactly. We're so quick to say, "Oh, we can do this," and we're just off running. And next thing you know, we're like doing 20 things that we would never actually do in real life. This happens to me actually all the time. And then somebody like we have that person in my organization. He's like AI counterpart, Dave Hatz, and Dave is right there to say, "Thanks, Bill. Yeah, it's great, but we're not going to do that." It's for like maybe a host of reasons, but yeah, to make sure that it's not just there and it can't just do these clever things, but it's ready for prime time. And there's no better place, as you said, Lex, than a university for that. If it's got to go through a lot of different screens before it's ready for a university or a government application.
I think you're going to see, I don't want to make predictions, but I think over the course of the next years, the trajectory is kind of set where the bleeding edge of AI is moving so rapidly, and it's even for someone that's embedded in it every day, it's so hard to keep up with. But lagging well behind that is like the practical application in whether it's an enterprise or a university or a government or something in a kind of professional context, in a work context, if you will. It's lagging behind, and we're going to get to the point. We even have the conversation. It's like, okay, fine, we're really pushing the edge, but let's just apply it to the solution. And there's so much value there. Like it's good enough. Like we don't need to keep. So it's like there's this kind of lag behind, which I think is coming, where it's like really practically applied AI that has all of that kind of security and compliance and all the things that are worrying you, Lex, which they should be. But like, I foresee over the next few years there being like just a tremendous amount of applied AI that's like really well built, well structured, and it's not necessarily worried, pushing the bleeding edge, but it's just a really good enough tons of value that's applied to certain situations.
I think of the self-adjusting AI that just helps us get better, faster, stronger, like in the moment.
Yeah,
This is a really rich and dense conversation, and I could let it go on forever, but unfortunately, I need to be a responsible host. So I need to keep us on time. And there is a tradition here on the Higher Ed AV podcast called the Rapid Round, where I am forced to now ask you random questions. So while I love this really on-topic conversation, you guys did a great job, I am now going to distract you with a few fun random questions, and then we're going to wrap it up.
Great.
All right. So the first fun random question for you is, what is the most unexpected or surprising way that you've seen technology improve a campus?
Yeah, I mean, something I've seen, like in particular with our features, is we've seen one of our higher ed customers use one of our tools called predefined layouts, which lets you submit content using a form. It's very basic, right? You know, anyone can submit it. What surprised me is how accessible they make it. I could go right now and actually submit signage to this campus. All 5 of us can, just sitting here. You know, that's kind of surprised me, but it's also cool to see how open they are to allowing new content contributors, students, faculty, et cetera, to submit content. And what it really tells me is they have a bulletproof moderation process. But yeah, something that surprised me for sure is like how open they were just to letting anyone submit content who stumbled upon it. So
I don't know for me if it was actually something that improved campus, as I'm struggling with, but I was absolutely surprised. And in fact, it was a moment I'll never forget at Northwestern University where I was stopped on campus. I was running late for a meeting, but a couple students stopped me with an iPad, and they were running a test. And that test was, they asked me some questions, they got some information, and immediately the one with the iPad kind of paired off to the side, hit a button, and a piece of paper printed out from a machine on their hip, and he had it in his hand. And as I'm answering questions, it took about 2 minutes to finish. He had me read the paper, and there were the answers to all the questions that I hadn't finished answering yet. And it got most of them right. And basically, it was an AI engine. It was some, and I'm assuming it was with what I know now. And I'm sure it went out onto the social pages, and it found my interest. And the questions were sort of tailored to the fact that they could probably find those out on LinkedIn and Facebook and so forth. And I was just blown away at how something could be that intelligent to predict something I hadn't said yet.
There's no way I can top that. So I say next question.
Lex, did you have one?
No, next question.
Okay, great. Next question. I love this. So, all right, this is almost like the fun, like if you had a superpower question. So if you could instantly become an expert in any technology, what would it be and why?
Ooh.
Well, we all can be. We can instantly become experts in any technology. It's the power of Gen AI.
Yeah.
there you go.
For the purpose of this question, guys, you have to use your own human brain.
Oh man.
For me, it's pretty easy. Like, and from the same lines, Eric, that you just mentioned, I find myself struggling because I can easily see the concept from what AI can produce, but I don't know enough about the tech on the programming side and to be able to author code with some of my other nerdy friends like me that they can do that stuff. I would be so much further along if I could just whip off some code real quick and test up something and just, fire it off to a few people to see what they think. And I'm lagging there. And that's what I'd love to, if I could improve, it'd be that. And like, that would be my superpower, because I think having that ability would be huge these days.
You're going to be able to do that pretty soon.
Yeah, and I'm kind of to build on Bill's, both of his points for both questions. Like the convergence of AI and personalization is what personally excites me. That tool you mentioned, that experience, Bill, is pretty cool, predictive, like knowing the answers you're about to spit out. Alongside you, like I wish I could build that myself too, right? Kind of get deep down the code and do it all myself. So I'm kind of with you there, Bill.
We're going to hang out with Eric, and he's going to show us how we
Yeah.
we can.
No, I was like, Eric knows some cool stuff. I think For me, it would be anything like experiential signage or experiential, like immersive technology. I think that's the future of a lot of things, shopping, um, museums, different things like that. Of course, that really incorporates well typically with AI, but I would love to be a part of that and be like the go-to guru for for immersive tech. That'd be sick.
Yeah, I'm gonna I'll answer it slightly differently. I wouldn't. I'm not looking at a specific skill or capability, but I'm looking to just increase general knowledge and understanding. I mean, the pace and rate that I personally learn and assimilate information is so far greater than at any other point in my life. So it's what do you do if you can learn anything you want? Information is democratized, knowledge is democratized, and pulling all of that together and looking at how the world connects and humanity connects, and it's just phenomenal. And it's been very exciting for me over the past couple of years to really just have almost like this bigger picture.
Almost like having the knowledge to know how to ask the right question to get
Yeah,
the bespoke answer that is correct. Like that's, Britt, I see your role here. If you're the Wizard of Oz, you're going to give us each our heart and our, when it's all done, we get all this, right? When it's all said and done,
Yes.
That's what you're going to.
In 3 to 5 business days, yes.
Wait a second. If we're using Wizard of Oz, I don't think we'll be getting any of it. Have you guys seen Wicked? Come on.
Of course.
You could be our
This
genie.
is the last official rapid round question, and it is a typical question here for the Higher Ed AV podcast. So higher education is steeped in tradition, both across the board and at individual campuses. So to that end, what is your favorite higher ed tradition?
The first football game of the season, and I'm not even into sports, but the kind of energy there is just next level. You don't like at a college, especially D1. Oof, so good.
Yeah, it's kind of built on that. My favorite tradition I went to University of Oklahoma, like I said, and the OU Texas Red River rivalry at the Cotton Bowl here in Dallas where I live. It's always crazy to go to. The 50-50 split in the stadium always. Corn dogs, right? The typical fair food, all the fried food. It's that's one of my, and then the Boomer Sooner chant, of course, in the stadium, echoing loud.
I think the University of Michigan Hash Bash, although I was not a participating member, that experience, if you've never heard of that or experienced it, that is now legal in the state of Michigan, but I'm pretty sure it still goes on. But there were many years where marijuana was not legal in the state of Michigan, but it was for 4 hours in Ann Arbor. And it was just, you'd be shocked, or maybe you wouldn't be shocked at how many people would cram into this one zip code so that they could do something they're not allowed to do anywhere for 4 hours. Unbelievable experience to see.
I was thinking surely you did not mean that kind of hash, but you
I wasn't. Yeah,
I wasn't. Absolutely did. We may need to edit that whole part out, but I'm being truthful that I didn't partake.
Well,
sure.
I was slightly hesitant to share mine, but now, Bill, you kind of said it. But
it's a family show.
It's a family show, yeah. So I had the fortune of going to RISD, and there's no sports or organized, but there is an intramural program, and there is a mascot, which I won't say anything more about. But if you want to Google the RISD mascot, I'll say no more.
I think there'll be some Googling going on.
The unofficial RISD mascot is.
Yes. All right. Well, listen, there are no wrong answers, but Bill's was the most correct answer for the record. Right. Thank you, everybody, for being a good sport during the rapid round, and thank you for the wonderful educational conversation that we had here today. How can people contact each of you after this episode airs if they would like to do that? Max, we'll start with you.
I guess on LinkedIn, first name, last name. Or max.guerro@korbyt.com. Yeah.
Okay, great. Lex?
Ditto. Not at Max Korbyt.
Yeah.
But at my LinkedIn, it's Howdy, it's Lex, or my name.
Awesome. Great. Yeah. If anyone wants to contact anyone, just go to Max's LinkedIn. I'm just kidding. Eric,
I'll
how
handle it all.
will
Yeah,
contact you
exactly.
after?
We'll create a group chat. Yeah.
That's right.
There you go.
I'll make it simple, Brett. For me, it's very much the same, but it's a different company, of course. But Bill Fons, Fons is Fons like Sam on LinkedIn, and it's bill.fons at cti.com.
And I'm, of course, on LinkedIn as well, but I'm Eric at netspeak.com, and that's netspeek.com.
Most excellent. All right. Thank you for listening to the Higher Ed AV podcast. Opinions expressed here are our own. This particular episode was sponsored by Korbyt. And if you did not like the opinions you heard here, there might be better ones next time.